Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go after the lefts, we go after the rights, we go after the middle and independents, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, April 23rd, 2025, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. Like we said, we do take the news and try to make sense of it all. Before we do get started, guys, let you know that we do pride ourselves on being a news podcast, which means that we do cite our sources from the most reputable places with award-winning journalism. We do not do sensational news like Fox News, The Blaze, Daily Beast, wherever you get your extreme left or extreme right views from. We simply don't do that. At the same time, guys, we do try to watch our language, but hey, words fly. At the same time, there may be things that might be shown that might be too intense for younger viewers. So viewer discretion is advised aside from that welcome. So, well, it goes down in the DM again. Why? Well, because it seems we have a Secretary of Defense that does not know security. Figure that out.
Tonight, NBC News has learned shortly before U.S. fighter jets took off to launch airstrikes against Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen last month. The head of U.S. Central Command, Army General Eric Kurilla, used a secure government system to send Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, his superior, specific details about the imminent operation, according to 3 U.S. officials with direct knowledge of the exchanges. Minutes later, the sources say Hegseth used his personal phone to send some of that information to at least 2 group chats on the messaging app Signal, one with Hegseth's wife, his brother, and his personal attorney. The material included when those fighter jets would take off and when they would hit their targets, details that in the wrong hands could put the American pilots in danger. Hegseth today denied sharing any classified information on Signal.
I look at war plans every single day. What was shared over Signal then and now, however you characterize it, was informal, unclassified coordinations for media coordination and other things. That's what I've said from the beginning.
When asked, President Trump again this week said he remains confident in Hegseth.
Oh, no. Why do you even ask a question like that?
Still, a prominent Republican lawmaker has now joined top Democrats condemning Hegseth's actions. Republican Congressman Don Bacon, a retired Air Force general, telling NBC News, if true, it is unacceptable, and I wouldn't tolerate it if I was responsible.
Peter, we're also learning Secretary of State Marco Rubio plans to reorganize the State Department.
Okay, so let's just stop right there. Let's just go ahead because, again, it goes down in the DM. Again, with a Secretary of Defense that can't seem to keep his goddamn mouth shut, or his text for that matter. There's a problem with this, but then again, I've been saying it's a problem with Pete Hegseth since his nomination. Since he sat there and said, if nominated Secretary of Defense, I will not drink. And 4 hours later, you could see him picking up a whiskey glass during a meeting. Matter of fact, was he actually sober during the Easter egg roll at the White House? Who can tell? But I'll tell you who can tell, our enemies, because they love for the simple fact of the matter that any time that our Secretary of Defense just happen to have plans, I feel sorry for anybody in the military right now, covert or active or otherwise. Because imagine you have a drunk person that's texting everybody, here's what we're doing with the Houdini. We are going to bomb them. LOL. Send. That's exactly what he's doing. And of course, why does his wife and his personal lawyer need to know Army war plans? I'm not saying anything that's considered top secret. Okay? I'm not drunk. Again, Pete Hegseth, the most functioning alcoholic that is now Secretary of our Defense. Not for long, who can tell? Because F-47 says he's doing a great job. No, he's not. He is a risk, much like every other person in F-47's administration. They are all compromised individuals in places of power that we simply cannot tolerate because, again, if somebody wanted to just get at us, They should just wait for the next. They should just wait for the next DM for Mr. Hegseth. But again, it is amazing to me that, as I said before, this is F-47 in his second time around. And what has he done? He has not picked qualified people. He has picked loyalists. He has picked people that will fall on the sword for him if he asks to. And I know what you're thinking. Well, it's just like what's his face almost became Attorney General, and because that report that was out about Matt Gaetz, when that report came out against him, they decided to go another way. So it could be done. Could the same be done for Pete Hegseth? Unfortunately, I don't think that Pete Hegseth's position will go away anytime soon unless he has royally screwed up somewhere. And I mean, it has to be on a we almost got caught in another war type situation, because that's the only way I could see him losing his spot. Because again, we've seen what happens where his first DM went to a journalist. And I still say that was because he wanted them to know. I feel sorry for the journalist, because imagine you being part of a group chat you didn't ask for, seeing stuff that you shouldn't be seeing, and now you're wondering, should you be calling legal right now? In the same sense, Pete Hegseth has no problem spilling war plans with unqualified, unsecured, unvetted people. And that should be alarming, considering the fact that, the U.S. has a lot of enemies, and we are still operating in theaters of war, and we still have multiple assets, known and unknown, still going on. I am just saying. But hey, if they're completely okay with the simple fact of the matter of a drunk still allowing to just do what he wants to do, I feel sorry for anybody in the armed forces right now. Hopefully you guys can get out and get out soon. Because again, I still think that one drunk text is going to lead to one loss of an American soldier. That's just me. But moving right along, guys, I wanted to cover the story as well, because again, we know the Department of Education, headed by Vince McMahon's wife, Linda McMahon, who's got her marching orders from F-47 to dismantle the Department of Education. Well, they decided we're going to restart student loans, specifically the collection payments.
Or we'll take it ourselves. More than 5 million Americans whose student loans are in default are now less than 2 weeks from having their loans sent to debt collectors. That word coming from the Department of Education, which the Trump administration is actually trying to dismantle. Payments were first paused by President Trump in 2020 because of the pandemic. Then President Biden extended the pause multiple times, but Trump is now saying no more. Alex Brachet is tracking this for us. So, Alex, is the government really going to go after paychecks?
Well, Kira, it appears that they're prepared to do so, and the implications here are sweeping. As you mentioned, there are some 5 million American borrowers who have defaulted on student loan payments and could have those loans sent to collections as soon as May 5th, according to this memo from the Department of Education. And also, as you mentioned, I mean, this is the first time that the federal government is essentially going after these borrowers since the COVID pause went into effect. Now, I want to kind of lay out that this means that, for default to default on a loan, I mean, these are people that haven't paid for roughly about 9 months. But look, I mean, it's kind of sweeping here in terms of how the Treasury Department will be looking at mechanisms to get some of that money back. They're talking about first looking at things like tax refunds and other maybe federal incomes, but then after a 30-day period, they will potentially garnish wages.
So all of this happening as the administration is dismantling the Department of Education. So who's even overseeing these student loans?
Yeah, so that role has fallen to the Small Business Administration. But Kira, I mean, there's a lot of confusion as to how this is going to be processed. We talked to a lot of borrowers who say that, they've gotten cryptic notices from the Department of Ed, or have gotten deferment notices that they didn't ask for. And there's also a community of borrowers that have enrolled in loan forgiveness programs that say that, they're having a hard time figuring out how to go about that process. The Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program is one of them, where folks, enter public service programs, and after a period of 10 years of constant repayment, those loans are forgiven. There is a lot of confusion as to how the system is going to look and how it's supposed to function with these sweeping changes.
We'll track it. Alex, thank you. We'll pay.
Well, again, it is amazing at this point because we talked about student loans multiple times on this podcast. We have sat there and said, and again, not to sound like a broken record, student loans is predatory lending. Because how in the world do 18 and 19-year-olds who want to go to basically wanted to pursue higher learning, may have not had the money to go to college because tuition is increasing every year, and yet the education is still the same. But the great hustle was told. In order for you to get a great high-paying job, you need to actually have a degree. And if you had a degree, then okay, cool, you're fine. But at the same time, folks, a lot of people had, decided because they wanted higher education, they wanted to go ahead and, for lack of better words, pursue it. Now, with that also being said, however, the problem is that with predatory lending, the banks knew exactly what they can get away with, and they've been getting away with it for decades. Even more so to where it honestly got to the point to where kids were just pretty much saying, you know what? It's, for kids especially, which I'll give kids credit for, that some of them out there were thinking along the lines of, you know what? It's just not freaking worth it. It really isn't. A lot of them, and I will give them credit for it, that it's not freaking worth it. Even more so, they said they don't want to take on debt just to basically get a degree. And I applaud them for it, because for a lot of us, myself included, we do have student loans and the interest accrues. And at the same time, if I haven't noticed, wages have stagnated. Everything has gone up but your paycheck. We say it all the time here as an ending on the show. Everything has gone up but your paycheck. And at the same time, ladies and gentlemen, you still have other bills to be paid because rent has went up, mortgages has went up, gas has went up, food has went up, everything has went up. So yes, when Biden was trying to basically get student loans wiped, and I will say this at first, his whole thing initially was wiping out student loans completely, which after centrist Democrats said that no, we can't do that. Republicans, because they were paid by the banks and the debt collectors that were looking forward to those payments, definitely pushed for hell no. Biden then tried to knock off $10,000 to $20,000. That eventually did get sent up to Congress, and that was shot down. And the Supreme Court said the president does not have the ability to forgive student loans, and that led to some creative thinking on the Department of Education's part that was headed up by a different secretary, to where for-profit college scams and folks that were actually duped by those did get their loans forgiven. Those in the public self program, some of those actually got forgiven. People who have been paying for loans for 10 plus years and still not made a dent, those got forgiven. So I will give Biden credit because he at least tried to clean up the slate. Whereas F-47's administration is now saying, oh no, we want to go ahead and start those payments up because that student loan debt needs to be paid back. And here's my thing, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I think it's bullshit. Number one, nobody really has the time to sit there. And if you think about it, you have to pay the average person that has student loans. It is paying, it's at least more than a third of your income. So, after you pay your student loans, you still got to figure out how to eat, how to keep the roof over your head, how to keep the car, how to keep gas in the car, how to keep insurance on the car, how to keep clothes on your back, how to keep food in the kitchen, how to keep your utilities paid, and things of that nature. It's a tightrope with multiple plates, and all you have is two arms. At the same time, the argument always kills me because you always get those individuals. Well, I was able to pay my loans off. Why can't you do it? I was able to work 2 jobs for 4 years and I finally got to pay it. I had an inheritance. My family had this property I was able to sell off. Why can't you do the same thing I do? It is the most ridiculous argument ever. And it's only ridiculous because they believe it, that if they did it, so can someone else. Not forgetting the fact of the matter that everybody's situation is different. But alas, I do have another argument that can be done. So if you ever find yourself along with those individuals that always believe that, and again, This is not those that have student loans are trying to skirt out of it. We would love to pay off our student loans. We would love to sit there and get this rock out from under us, because student loans on credit reports, forgive me for my language, is a bitch. It is. And if you don't know about credit, again, another thing that is not taught in schools that really should be the credit game and how your debt to income ratio is handled, because that controls how you honestly live the rest of your life, really. But what I'm getting at is, this is not for those that have loans like me to sit there and say, we don't want to pay. We would love to pay. But the thing is, nobody wants to be paying 10 years on a loan when it's just the interest. That's the thing. That's why I call it predatory lending. It's predatory lending because folks are paying thousands upon thousands of dollars every year, and it doesn't go to the principal. It goes to the interest. So even though you're paying off the interest, which again is accruing on a daily basis, the principal is still there. So it's like, yeah, you might have knocked down this door, the steel reinforcement is still sitting behind the other door. And it's just like, where does this go? That's why a lot of people sit there and say, it's like, what's the point? Because the only way I'm going to get out from under this is if, I'm no longer on this planet, or if I win the lottery. But the reason why you're going to run to these people that believe that, you can work hard and do this and just skip on eating and, all this stuff, and you'll collect your loans. Here's my counter argument. What about the people who took out PPP loans? I know it's been so long. It's been so long since that continent triple time has been said about the Paycheck Protection Program, which also happened under F-47's first run. Because remember, businesses were trying to figure out how to keep their employees paid during COVID, and the government was going to help out. And there were folks that were coming up with fake businesses and getting $50,000 to $70,000 or more in government funding for their quote unquote business. And guys, you can see right here at ProPublica, I bring this up every chance I get, because you're going to run into some people who really believe that everybody should pay their way. And I always say, oh, really? Let's look at this number here, okay? Because again, this is PPP loans. Every PPP loan that has ever been doled out has come up to a ripe old number of $793 billion. That's billion with a B. Over nearly almost 12 million loans approved, almost nearly $794 billion doled out. Now, how much was forgiven? $763 billion forgiven, which means, hey, we're writing it off. You don't got to pay it back. No problem. Now, it is amazing to me, and I just want to bring this up for all those that, you might be mathematically inclined or calculator dependent. That's fine. I just want to show something. $793 billion was distributed. $763 billion was forgiven, which means only $30 billion was ever actually recovered. So again, guys, $673 billion of government funding was simply written off for businesses and those corporations. Because, corporations took out PPP loans. Corporations that have plenty of money and other means and ways, they had the ability to go get money, but they figured, go get it from the government because we can be forgiven, not to worry about paying it back. This is the argument I make all the time when it comes to people saying we shouldn't forgive student loans, because we paid for businesses to be forgiven more than the majority of the distribution that went out. So whenever you hear someone sit there and say, well, I don't think student loans can be paid, I think we can, because the simple fact of the matter is we let the businesses slide. We let the farmers who are getting bailed out again slide. We let the big automotive three, when they went crying to Congress talking about, if we don't have money, we're going to affect all these jobs, they let them slide. Wall Street shows up when they're through playing casino and say, we need more house money. they get to slide. So why is it? And again, feel free to use this argument at your leisure, because anytime student loans are brought up, giving millions of Americans a much needed break, why is it always met with resistance when everything else gets swept under the rug? Again, this is F47, Linda McMahon, who is the Secretary of Education, are all pushing for collections to start. And I'm sorry, if you think you can get blood from a stone, take your best shot. I just know for me, and this is the last I'm going to say on it, if the Department of Education is being dismantled, the Department of Education is who oversaw the loans. The Department of Education is who distributed the loans. If the Department of Education is no more, why the hell should I be paying on loans going to a department that no longer exists? Just saying. But moving right along, guys, I wanted to cover the story as well because you guys may remember we covered this vaguely about a certain senator, former senator, I should say, Bob Menendez. Well, him and his wife were basically accused of bribery. Well, I never thought I'd see this day happen where the wife got convicted faster than the senator.
And Nadine Menendez, wife of New Jersey's former Senator Robert Menendez, was found guilty of bribery due to what federal prosecutors say was her role in a multi-year fraud conspiracy with her husband. Menendez was convicted on all counts that accused her of trading her husband's political favors for gold bars, wads of cash, and other bribes. Her sentencing will take place in June. The same month, her husband is scheduled to report to begin serving an 11-year sentence.
Crazy, isn't it? That out of all that, because I forgot he did get convicted. Oh, well, I didn't take bribes. That's just money from normally. Sir, you have money in places that an old grandmother would keep. At the same time, yes, you were compromised. And yeah, you and your wife. I hate to break it to you on that. At the same time, we should not be surprised. I'm just surprised it's the first time that we ever heard a politician go down for corruption, and it wasn't who we thought it was, or at least who we hoped it would be, at least in due time. But with also that being said, speaking of things that are changing, of course, Elon Musk on his way out still had issues with F47's administration, even so much to where if the IRS is slightly delayed, this might be the reason why.
Savannah, I also want to ask you about this. In the heat of tax season, you now have the IRS commissioner replaced on Friday, just days after he was appointed for the top job. What can you tell us about that?
That's right, Laura. President Trump has replaced the acting head of the IRS at the urging of Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. Now, Gary Shapley had been picked by Elon Musk earlier this month to run the IRS, but without Bessent's blessing. So on Friday, Shapley was dismissed while Trump tapped Michael Falkender into the role of acting commissioner. Now, these changes at the IRS are reflective of the increasing tension within the administration over Elon Musk's vast influence. The president now has already indicated the Tesla CEO's time leading Doge will likely come to an end in the months ahead. Laura?
So it's amazing to me that, again, Elon Musk is not smart. He's just a guy riding his daddy's diamond mine money because he didn't start Tesla. He didn't start SpaceX. He didn't start Starlink. He bought all those companies and somehow leverage them into buying Twitter and turning into X. I just want to point that out every chance I get. So it seems ever since him and Doge, which, by the way, haven't saved anybody anything. Doge went in there along with Musk. We're going to save $2 trillion. You didn't find it. We're going to save $500 million. You didn't find it. Matter of fact, anytime you said that you did find something you saved, it immediately got taken down because, well, you couldn't show why. So it amazes me so when we come to see, and of course, people leaving and going inside of F47's administration is nothing new. It's just the fact that this is less than 200 days and counting, and it's already a crisis. It's already a mess. And the IRS right now is one of the very few things that really needs to be running smoother versus not installing another Trump loyalist because Elon Musk still wants access to people's information. Take it how you will, but that's basically the whole point of him being in the White House. Call me if I'm wrong. But him actually still leaving because he's supposed to be supposedly leaving, which again is still fine. I still say it's bullshit, but we will see. But moving right along, I want to get to RFK because of two reasons. One, his take on removing petroleum-based food dyes out of our food. Sounds great in theory, but I'll just play the video.
Secretary RK Jr. today moving to phase out the remaining 8 artificial dyes from America's food supply. The health secretary proposing to eliminate the petroleum-based dyes that are found in things like cereal, ice cream, snacks, and more. And he wants this done within 2 years. The secretary making the announcement in Washington. And here's what he said just a short time ago.
I was talking with my staff about these petroleum-based dyes, and I said, if they want to add petroleum, if they want to eat petroleum, they ought to add it themselves at home. But they shouldn't be feeding it to the rest of us.
Well, ABC News medical correspondent Dr. Darian Sutton is joining us with the latest. I mean, it's a little bit hard to argue with that argument, but Dr. Sutton, it sounds like, again, they want to eliminate some of these things from this food supply, some of them by the end of next year. That includes some of these more specific dyes, and that's really quick, right, for them to eliminate that within a year, the rest within 2 years. What should Americans be looking out for in the meantime?
It's incredibly quick. You know, food dyes are in a majority of products, or a lot of products, I should say. There was a Wall Street Journal analysis that found that 1 out of 10 products within supermarkets have some type of food dye in them. Of those products, Kana, at least 40% have 3 dyes or more. So this would be an incredible task to take on, trying to expedite this process. He even stated that red dye number 3, which was banned during the prior Biden administration, which has a goal to roll out in 2027, he had a goal to expedite that or move that into a quicker process. So all of that being said, it's a long regulatory process in order to take these products or these additives out of these food products that involves many stakeholders, not just the FDA, but also manufacturers as well as consumer health advocates.
And what are the concerns over the dyes generally?
So it is based on studies. And when we look at these studies, albeit they are smaller and some of them are older, they are animal studies that show that food dyes have been associated to outcomes such as cancer. The FDA maintains that these studies have not shown conclusive evidence that shows that harm can be affected in humans, but the FDA does also state that some children might have sensitivities. There are other studies that show that food dyes have been associated with behavioral changes, even hyperactivity, as well as even cases of allergies and irritable bowel disease. With that being said, these studies are still not fully conclusive. They're relatively small, and they don't tell the whole picture. But many health advocates are stating, oh, if there is any risk at all, why take that risk, given that there's no significant or no benefit at all by adding these food additives other than making products look better?
Well, I mean, these dyes have been in our food for years, right? They were approved in the first place. How does that happen? And how do they try to establish this national standard now in a new timeline?
And this has been decades long of a push from these health advocates that have been making sure that we are well aware of this information regarding the studies that have shown the associations with poor outcomes in terms of hyperactivity, behavior changes, and even, again, as I said, allergies and irritable bowel disease. Now, with that being said, the process of taking these food dyes out can be quite tremendous. When you look at the overall evidence, it is difficult to say a clear cause and effect, but if there is no clear benefit when adding something like a food additive other than making food look better, then many argue, let's just simply take it out. But that likely will take years, if not more, to fully roll out. If you're trying to make decisions for yourself and your family, the best advice is to look at the food label. All ingredients are listed in that food label. That is what we can trust on. And you want to make sure that if you want to avoid food dyes or artificial food additives, you can choose an easier route to pick organic foods. And then, of course, choosing whole foods over ultra-processed foods. And again, teaching your children is really important to read those food labels, making them savvy consumers so that when they're going around the supermarket by themselves, they can make better and healthier choices.
Yeah, that's.
So what's interesting is RFK doesn't have a plan. Outside of always needing a throat lozenge, lemon tea, and a Ricola, the man doesn't have a plan. We're gonna remove the petroleum-based dyes because they're harmful. I'm sorry. But again, RFK Jr. is an anti-vaxxer. And I will say this about anti-vaxxers, they're not very bright because anti-vaxxers will always die on the hill of vaccines cause autism or why does my child need so many shots? Which we'll get to in a minute, why your child needs so many booster shots. But if again with these dyes, which depending on the studies, here's the question nobody's asking, or RFK should be asking, or should be authorizing: why is there not a greater study done on these dyes? As the physician said in the video, there's been a handful of studies that are decades old. Okay, logic would dictate, if we need to get rid of dyes, shouldn't there be a study done? Shouldn't there be actual data for us to go by? Should there actually be a process put in place before we go ahead and decide that these dyes are terrible? I mean, I'm just saying that would make the most sense. Versus a guy who's an anti-vaxxer, who has no plan, saying that he's going to direct the FDA to ban these dyes, even though overseas they are banned. Now, I am not saying right or wrong because I'm not a scientist and the studies haven't been done. But why haven't the studies been done? At the same time, RFK Jr., if you're going to suddenly phase these things out, what's your plan? Because if I'm right, like everybody else in the F-47 administration, you guys talk a lot, but when it comes down to brass tacks, you don't have shit. Oh, well, I can only imagine. Oh, well, we have an understanding. Really? Me and my car have an understanding. Doesn't mean spit, because unless I actually give the sumbitch fuel and oil, I am not going very far, because they won't go very far. So yeah, an understanding my ass. But again, why are we surprised? It's RFK Jr., another Trump loyalist who has no problem being there, implementing his will, influencing things, at the same time saying he's going to do something, but really it's not going anywhere. Because that's all it is, not going anywhere. The FDA has always been somewhat influenced, because you can tell what they allow and what they don't allow. And at the same time, if we follow the same regulations that overseas do and currently still do, I think our food would look very different, if not taste very different. But again, I digress. Good luck giving us the word salad, RFK Jr. I'm pretty sure nothing's going to come out of it. But the reason why I'm sticking with anti-vaxxers, guys, is because we have seen cases of measles and other diseases, other viruses and diseases that honestly have gone away due to vaccination. Now that you got these anti-vax idiots out there not vaccinating their children, we're getting cases of things that were long gone coming back up, like whooping cough. I wish I could make this up.
We are back with a health alert from officials as whooping cough surges in the U.S.
Yeah, concerning stuff. So far this year, there have been more than 8,000 cases reported, which is more than double the number of cases this time last year. Experts say vaccine hesitancy is playing a big role in that spike.
NBC News medical contributor Dr. Kavita Patel is here with some tips to help keep you healthy and safe. Dr. Patel, good morning. So is that what's driving this, vaccine hesitancy, or is there other things at play?
It really is a combination of primarily vaccine hesitancy and then the fact that we really do depend on all people kind of getting vaccinated around individuals who can't, to create that community immunity. Those two things combined. But really, the vaccine rates have declined double digits in many of the states that have been affected around the country.
Well, and those numbers actually make a lot of sense. And pneumonia is one of the most common complications of whooping cough, and it can even be deadly. So what can people do to lower their risk other than obviously vaccination?
Obviously getting vaccinated. Most children, we recommend getting vaccinated under the age of 1 for whooping cough. It's part of a series that you might have recalled from the pharmacy or doctor called DTaP. Diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis. The P in pertussis refers to the bacteria that causes whooping cough. And so it's called whooping cough because children, infants especially under the age of 1, cough so frequently that in order to take a breath in, they have to take a big whoop, and you hear that kind of classic whooping cough. Candidly, guys, it's something we don't see a lot anymore. So even recognizing it can be a little difficult initially. So parents should be on the alert if their children are not vaccinated or if many household members are not vaccinated.
So the easiest way to say it, ladies and gentlemen, remember there was a time when you just got your child vaccinated and everybody was cool about it. At the same time, we didn't have to worry about measles. We didn't have to worry about smallpox, polio. Great thing we could have avoided. And whooping cough. We could avoid that too. Now, because you have anti-vaxxer parents out there, Well, I just don't understand why my child needs so many shots and they're only 4 months old. That's why. Because, again, when vaccination rates drop, cases increase. Why? Because you have individuals out there that are unvaccinated, that are walking petri dishes, that will get other people sick. Those are the type of parents I cannot stand, because you take your child who is a walking typhoid Mary and you put him or her in a room with other kids, then yes, they are almost bound to get sick because you introduce patient zero. And what kills me on anti-vaxxers is they always say the same thing. Well, I don't think that we need all these vaccinations. I think the body just naturally has an immunity. You know, you're an adult. You can make that decision. But for the child, give them a chance. Get them vaccinated. Vaccinations work. There are literally decades, if not almost centuries of data that show that vaccinations work. So at the same time, hearing these anti-vaxxer parents it betwixt my biscuits. It does. Because they're speaking from a place of ignorance and dangerous. Because the one time they might not get vaccinated might be the one time it cost their child's life. And who they're gonna complain now? We've seen with COVID. I said it before. I have yet to meet one person that beat COVID and then turn around and sit there and say, you know what? I'm glad I didn't get the vaccination. I'm glad I didn't get the vaccination. I beat COVID just fine. Every individual that got COVID and was literally on their deathbed turned around and sat there and said, I wish I got the vaccine when it was offered. Same with vaccinations. You could save your time. You could really save yourself a whole lot of gripe, anti-vax parents. Just pointing that out. But move right along, guys. You remember Target? Target right now, who is having a hard time losing over $12 billion. Stores are not as full as they used to be. Well, it seems that the Target CEO has reached out to Reverend Al Sharpton and the National Action Network that said he is going, that Al Sharpton and Target CEO Brian Connell will meet in New York. Now, here's the thing. Target, much like Walmart, much like a lot of other companies out there, decided to turn around and sit there and say, hey, for diversity, equity, and inclusion, we really don't need it. And got rid of their programs and also personnel that were hired with those positions. Of course, Target, because they had a resurgence, especially with a lot of African-American products, including Miss Tabitha Brown's products herself, along with Al Sharpton and other people, I think it was Pastor Jamal Bryan, I believe, that called for a boycott of Target. That was literally, I want to say 2 months ago. Yeah, 2 months. People have, left Target, deleted the app, found what they needed elsewhere, and some people have even done without and been fine. Target took a freaking hit since their decision back in January to remove the DEI products, to remove DEI policies and personnel from their stores. Now, here's also the reason why I say everybody's like, oh, well, why does he get to meet with Al Sharpton? He doesn't speak with us. Hold on a second. I'm gonna point this out. Here's the reason why you guys, why I say it's more face value than anything else. It's window dressing, because Trump wants to talk to the CEOs of Walmart, Target, and Home Depot for tariffs. Now, again, Trump has, he's playing this whole game of, I'm going to do tariffs. I'm not going to do tariffs. I am going to do tariffs. I'm not going to do tariffs. Or as I like to call it, he's doing market manipulation, because him and his buddies are buying and selling in the stock market right now and making a freaking killing. That being said, I am not surprised that he wants to meet with some of the bigger, CEOs of the bigger chains out there, because again, they know these tariffs are going to make them drive their prices up. Target cannot take another hit. They may be surviving now, but this is the reason why I sit there and say, for a lot of people, there's no point in going back. It's just like Woolworths in the South. Woolworths actually, for the longest time, loved black dollars until black dollars was pulled from them. And once it was pulled from them, what happened to Woolworths? Oh, come on back, please. Come on back, black people. We would love to have you. Target's not too far away from doing that. But again, I just don't get I mean, like I said, I wouldn't get too hyped about it because CEO is going to go to F-47. F-47 is going to want his palms greased before he turns around and decides that, hey, if you guys want me to not put the tariffs on your stuff that you get from China, I'm going to need some loyalty. Kiss the ring. And trust me, F-47 is really not above that, especially when he wants to get his way. But Supreme Court, I know we haven't talked about them in a while, are bringing up a case where I'm not surprised in this day and age that we have it, but it just seems that we have some narrow-minded parents out there that want to opt out of things for their children that would be culturally beneficial to them, and decide that, hey, because it's a pride thing, I don't want my kids to know about it because of my own bigotry. But I'll let the video speak for itself.
The Supreme Court is taking up a case over certain types of books in elementary schools. It all stems from a group of parents in Maryland. They want to be able to opt their children out of lessons that involve books with themes of gender and sexuality. The reason, they say, is that it goes against their religion. NBC News White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor joins us now with this reporting. Yamiche, I know you've been following this case from the start. Walk us through what's expected to happen tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow, the Supreme Court will hear oral arguments in a case about whether Montgomery County Public Schools in Maryland is violating the Constitution by not allowing parents to opt their children out of a policy that requires teachers to read students at least one book a year focused on LGBTQ+ teen themes and diversity. I traveled to the community to see what this is at the heart of this case. And again, oral arguments are going to be tomorrow. Take a listen. In the largest school district in Maryland, a dispute over books, gender, and religion is pitting families against each other in a case now coming before the Supreme Court. At issue, a policy by Montgomery County Public Schools that does not allow parents to opt their children out of lessons that use these books and feature LGBTQ+ themes, including same-sex love stories and transgender characters. In 2023, a group of parents who are Muslim, Catholic, and Ukrainian Orthodox filed a lawsuit saying the school policy violates their First Amendment rights to freedom of religion. But the policy has been upheld by lower courts. The case is bringing a heated national debate to this community.
The Islamic faith and numerous other faiths, we believe that marriage is between a man and a woman.
Wael El-Kasheri, a Muslim parent, has pulled his 9-year-old daughter out of the school system and is now homeschooling her. He is not part of the lawsuit, but has been organizing protests against the policy.
I'm responsible for my child, and I want the accommodations to make sure that that child is raised in an ecosystem that I believe does not contradict my religious beliefs.
Jeffrey Gans and his husband, Dennis Williams, support the school's policy.
You may not agree with homosexuality, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So by removing a child from the classroom, it's sending a totally negative message to that other child in that classroom who might be struggling with their identity.
If I could have had a book like that when I was young, it would make all the difference in the world.
El-Kasheri says he doesn't want the school system to change his curriculum, just to allow him to opt out, though he thinks some of the books are not age appropriate for students.
Children at a young age are very impressionable.
Eric Baxter, a lawyer for the parents suing, plans to argue the case before the High Court.
The Supreme Court has long said that schools aren't there to impose one ideological view, that we learn to get along by respecting each other's views. And that's all we're asking for here.
Montgomery County Public Schools did not respond to our multiple requests for comment. But in court documents, the school district said teachers are not permitted to enforce a particular viewpoint or ask students to change how they feel.
If we allow kids to opt out of this curriculum, of these books, where do we draw the line? Do we opt out of teaching about religion to my children because I don't want them to learn about a religion different than mine?
Now the 6-3 conservative majority Supreme Court will have the final say.
Wow, Yamiche, great report. How do people on both sides of this issue feel about what the court may decide?
Well, it's a good question. We know the school district has won in lower court, so they're hoping to win again at the high court. That said, the parents and lawyers against the school district's policy told me they feel very confident that they will win this case, especially after President Trump successfully ran for re-election, in part by pushing back against teaching about LGBTQ plus themes and transgender Americans. And this is, of course, a 6-3 conservative majority court that experts say is more likely to side with parents saying their religious rights are being violated.
And let me tell you something. The attack on Christianity is bullshit. Much like Israel trying to sit there and say that we're the victims in this whole war. No, you're the aggressors. But let's dial back to this second. Parents want to be able to opt out of children reading from books that have LGBTQ plus authors, and what they deem stuff is not deemed for children. Here's my thing, because I always love when they sit there and say, well, they're supposed to learn their differences naturally. I always say it best. What is taught in the home will eventually wind up in school. So, for example, the whole thing of, well, it's against my religion. Okay, your religion stays at home. But your religion will influence your child. Your child will take those influences to school. However, it's not a religious school that they go to. It's a public school. Public schools are the reason why we have separations of church and state. There's a reason why most schools will sit there and say, we respect everybody. It's an open policy. We accept everybody. Unless you go to religious school where, good luck with that. Good luck trying to be LGBT. Good luck trying to throw a pride flag at a Christian private school. Good luck. Because it's not the religion that comes out, it's the bigotry. At the same time, guys, there's this thing called cultural awareness. Now, for a lot of people, the only way that you are aware of another person's culture is that you are shown it, you learn it, and it's taught to you. And if it's taught to you at a young age for acceptance, you will be more culturally sensitive to other people who are different than you. And I mean, not sensitive as in bleeding hearts, but to understand where they're coming from and acknowledge their existence without being a dick. That also being said, these parents, especially Mr. My Religion, here's the thing. If you so strongly believe that your religion should actually, affect your child's education, then I'm glad you made the decision to pull your child out of public school and homeschool them. Because whatever that child develops or becomes into will entirely be on you. Because I think you're robbing them of an experience. My whole thing has always been this when it comes to the pride flag, when it comes to whether you're binary or non-binary, whether your pronouns are they or them or he and her. The thing is, we are all freaking human beings. Kids are more accepting of anything. Kids are more accepting of anybody. Really and truly, more accepting of practically anyone. And they are the least biased because they just want to be able to join and be around others. That being said, it amazes me that parents, especially religious parents, will always cite, well, it's my religion. Then go to religious school. Go to a religious school that aligns with your religious beliefs. Go there. But quit trying to narrow the field in a public school. Public school accepts everybody. You hate the fact that they accept everybody because you believe that in order to believe that because they are teaching cultural awareness, which all teachers do, you believe it is some sort of indoctrination. And again, it's not indoctrination. Christian public school, Christian private schools, that's indoctrination. But, we don't want to, we'll be all day on that subject. But the thing I'm getting at is here, guys, that yes, there is a problem. The Supreme Court is conservative leaning. And I have said this before many times in this podcast, the dangers of a Supreme Court that is conservative leaning has always, 9 times out of 10, has always won the favor of F-47 and people like his thinking. So again, we will wait and see what they do, but I am nervous and afraid for people who are different just because people want to lean on religion as a shield to shield their bigotry. Yes, I said it. But speaking of idiots that don't know when their job is done, but still wanting to beg for the table of F-47, there is a reason, guys, why most Republicans don't hold town halls, because they catch hell from constituents who didn't believe that, hey, I didn't think this could happen to me type of people. Well, Representative Byron Donald, remember that guy who sat there and said black people are doing better under Jim Crow than they are doing now? The same guy that doubled down and thought that he would be a part of F-47's cabinet, the same person who's now trying to run for governor of Florida and yet has gotten no endorsement from F-47. Well, he's back out again, and he's at a town hall, and shouldn't be surprised how it went or how it looks.
At the same time, but now we have this false premise that if you don't have these three initials existing in every corporate boardroom and every college classroom, and somehow minority kids cannot get ahead, it is a lie. It is a lie. And I, for one, after trying to become professional, but I, for one, find it to be disrespectful to other young black kids trying to find a way to get up in this world to say they can't get ahead if it's not for DEI. That is a lie. You are lying to those kids.
Jack Phelps.
Have you read the book of my life?
Got you. All right.
Whoa, stop. Don't educate me about my life, sir. Don't do that. Don't, sir, hold on. Please, hear me on this. I like how everybody's shouting at me, the black guy on the stage with a microphone in his hand, saying, have you read this book, read this book, read this book, read this book? Don't marginalize my life and what I've done. Don't do that. Don't marginalize the life of other black people in this country have done well. Don't do that. Don't marginalize theirs. Do you know how many black men in America today run private equity funds, run hedge funds, have done something marvelous? They may not agree with me politically, but they've done marvelous things. Don't legitimize what they've done. Don't delegitimize what they've done. Don't do that. We should celebrate the successes in our country, not push them down because you have to have DEI. Now I'm ready for the next question.
To the 35,000 casualty number, in our briefings, that is stuff that has come from Hamas. And last time I checked Hamas, is anybody here vouching for Hamas's accountant? I'm not going to vouch for that accountant. Secondly, and let me say this. Israel, throughout this entire conflict, which is now going over close to 600 days now, through this entire ordeal, Israel has tried to bring food and water into Gaza. You don't have to agree. I've actually seen the briefings. I've seen the trucks myself. The drug cartels south of the border had Americans held hostage. Do you think the United States government would sit by and passively negotiate with the Sinaloa cartel? No, we would not. But that is the same, it is called an analogy. What I say is, we should stand behind Israel 100%. We should do everything to make sure the hostages come home.
Oh, what a train wreck that was. But guys, I want to point something out here. That's the crowd. Now, I don't know about you, but I spot maybe 1, 2, 3 by hairstyles. The rest of the crowd, all napkin. Now, again, what I mean by that is because Representative Byron Donalds is still hoping to be the governor of Florida because he tried to be in the presidential administration, but F-47 decided, hey, I already have one black person. I filled my quota. And now he's trying to sit there and again, still spout the lies, still jump through the hoops, does everything that he's trying to do to let F-47 know, look at me, still pick me, F-47. I want to be somewhere. At the same time, repeating the lies, repeating the bullshit, still spouting the same old mess. And yet, still trying to grift. But again, there is a reason, guys, why Republicans are doing town halls. Exhibit A. And finally, guys, before we get to our feel-good segment, I gotta talk about this story because again, the case of Carmelo Anthony and how it's being treated, because I want to tell you right now, if you are not supporting Mr. Anthony, but supporting another guy, you are full of shit.
Tensions deepening between two Texas families, torn apart by a deadly high school track meet stabbing, now playing out in public view. Jeff Metcalf, the father of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf, who was killed earlier this month, crashing a news conference on Thursday, held with the family of his alleged killer, 17-year-old Carmelo Anthony. Metcalf, wearing dark sunglasses, escorted away by police. He has not commented since his appearance, but spoke to NBC's Dallas-Fort Worth station KXAS earlier this month.
You know what? I already forgive this person. Already. God takes care of things.
After Metcalf was led out on Thursday, Anthony's parents addressed the cameras.
To the family who experienced the loss, my heart truly goes out to you.
Kayla Hayes, Anthony's mother, offering her sympathies, but also detailing the public backlash against her own family in her first comments since the stabbing.
We have endured death threats. My 13-year-old daughter is afraid to sleep in her own bedroom because she's fearful of what may happen to her.
Her son was charged with murder after police say he stabbed Metcalf following a verbal altercation at a track meet on April 2nd. They say Anthony admitted to the killing, saying he acted in self-defense. Dominique Alexander, president of the Next Generation Action Network and a spokesman for the Anthony family, spoke to Top Story earlier this week about those claims.
I think that Black America as a general right, is saying, how is it absurd that a Black child is claiming self-defense? But we always see repetitively white children being able to say self-defense and there's no problem.
On Monday, a judge lowering Anthony's bond from $1 million to $250,000, releasing him on strict conditions of house arrest, ankle monitoring, and weekly check-ins with the bailiff. A grand jury still has to decide whether to move forward with an indictment.
I don't know why we are being targeted and discriminated against before a fair trial. Our son deserves the same rights under the law that everyone is afforded to.
And Kathy Park joins us now. Kathy, not long after the Anthony family press conference, police were called out to the Metcalf family home. Do we know what happened there?
Yeah, Ellison. So Frisco police say they responded to what was initially reported as a gunshot call to an address linked to Austin Metcalf's family. But officials are now saying it was a case of swatting. You might have heard of it. It's a fake threat intended to get a large law enforcement response. So right now, it is still unclear who made this call, but swatting really is a serious crime, and anyone who is behind it could be facing criminal charges. Ellison?
So, again, the case of Mr. Anthony. A teen, again, two teens having an issue. Some words got said. Mr. Anthony claimed self-defense and stabbed and defended himself against another teen. And again, now being charged with murder. And still being, I guess the best words, being shown as the villain. He's being villainized. Now, here's what's so crazy about this, guys. That before I get to the comparison, understand, whenever a person of color defends himself, and let's just say a person that's non-person of color dies, it is said quite differently on the other side of the fake-ass Fox News network. Bear with me, it's only a couple of minutes.
And senseless, violent crime. Now we see it reported on screen small and large, and sometimes even live stream talk about depraved. And we see it so frequently, we risk becoming numb to these tragedies. But every once in a while, a story comes along that shakes you to your core. And on Tuesday afternoon in Frisco, Texas, two young men went to compete in a high school track meet. They exchanged a few words, and then neither came home. 17-year-old Austin Metcalf was senselessly murdered, stabbed to death, and he died in his twin brother's arms.
So then I see him running down the bleachers, grabbing his chest, just
boy rushing out. He said, he got stabbed. He got stabbed. First, I froze for half a second. I didn't know what to do. And then I saw him about to fall. I went to go over there. I grabbed him. I see. This guy.
Yeah, I understand. Best I can to
Yeah,
understand.
there was. You can see. You can picture what happened when what was coming out of his chest, and
yeah.
Y'all can visualize other stuff. I don't want to put down my mom right now, but I pushed my hand on there, trying to make it stop, and I grabbed his head and I looked in his eyes.
This is beyond heartbreaking. But then the next question, could you forgive the person who took your child's life? Now, somehow after his family was shattered, you can see that in the video on the Will Kane show, shattered by that loss, Austin's father, Jeff, says he already has forgiven the murderer, and he joins us now. Jeff, please accept our deepest condolences. This is so horrific. I have two sons, all parents, people across this country I know are praying for your family. What happened here?
I wish I could explain it. I don't have a full understanding of it, but my son was taken at a young age, and I'll never get him back. Unfortunately, it's over a trivial seating arrangement. And I received a phone call from one of the coaches that said my son had been stabbed, and I jumped in my vehicle and drove to the stadium and ran up there. And when I saw him on the gurney, he wasn't breathing. I knew he was gone. They were trying to revive him, and they took him to the ambulance and took him to the hospital. In the meantime, I had to gather my other son, Hunter, and take us to the hospital where we await the word from the doctor. And my worst fears were confirmed. They weren't able to save him.
Now, it was reported that there was some chat or altercation, very short, about where the assailant was sitting under the tent where the competition was going on. But tell us about your son, Austin. I was struck by the hunting trip that you just.
So let's just stop right there, because like I said, it's Fox News. I do not want to bore you guys with the bullshit. Now, is it sad that, a father and a mother lost their son? Yes. But this is what Fox News does so freaking well, because they make sure that it's always faith, family, and friends. They always try. They paint the person that was killed. Oh, he was a good kid. He was this. He would love to help anybody. They love to paint the victim, who is sometimes, let's be honest, if the victim is white, they have that seat. If the victim is white, they must be right, because they paint him as, oh, he wasn't that. He was a good kid. I know, trying to stand and say this and that about him and insinuating about the assailant and throwing in what possibly might happen. Oh, it was a seating arrangement or this problem or this problem. And the father, well, I immediately forgive him. Well, that's why the father showed up at the family press conference. To do what exactly? See, this is the thing I'm getting at, folks, is just that whenever Fox News or the extreme right wants to basically try to paint the narrative, that's painting the narrative. Because, and I'm getting my analogy very quickly, because they want to make Mr. Anthony seem like the villain. White people love a great black villain. You saw it between Angel Reese and you saw it between Caitlin Clark. Although Caitlin Clark did not do it, she did not instigate it. She simply played. Now, granted, when she, got her deal and got in the NBA, was she more vocal about it? Yes. She was more vocal about the fact that it was trumped up. It had nothing to do with her and that she just wanted to play ball. Had she said it before she got the money, I'm more likely to believe her. But white people love a great black villain. A tale as old as time. And now Mr. Anthony, a 17-year-old who claims self-defense, who did, said that he confessed that he did stab the guy, did confess that, hey, we had an altercation. Nobody knows what happened between Mr. Anthony and said person who's no longer here with us. But Fox News is going to paint that picture of that victim being angelic and that his life was cut short, and that the villain, which again, they didn't say the name, they're going to make it, they're going to hype it up that way. Now, here's the thing I was there and say, because defense funds and GoFundMe's were done for Mr. Anthony's defense, folks were sitting there calling it, trying to get them canceled, saying that, how dare you raise money for a murderer? Well, for all those people that sit there and say, how dare you? Y'all were the same people wanting to spend millions to defend this idiot.
The Kyle Rittenhouse murder trial, the accused killer took the stand in his own defense, at one point actually breaking down as the judge paused the trial. Alex Perez has the latest from Kenosha, Wisconsin.
That's a call, Kyle Rittenhouse.
An explosive day of testimony. Jurors Wednesday, for the first time, hearing directly from Kyle Rittenhouse about the night he shot and killed Joseph Rosenbaum and Anthony Huber and injured Gage Grosskreutz.
You intended to kill, correct?
I didn't intend to kill them. I intended to stop the people who were attacking me.
Then this moment on the witness stand, the now 18-year-old sobbing, unable to talk as he described encountering Rosenbaum, who he says was chasing him.
Mr. Rosenbaum was now running from my right side, and I was cornered from in front of me with Mr. Zeminski, and there were
the judge calling for a break. Rittenhouse also telling the jury that Rosenbaum threatened him before the shooting.
He screamed, "If I catch any of you alone, I'm going to kill you."
Through testimony, the defense painting a picture of a young man who had been cleaning graffiti and wanted to offer medical help to those injured during the protests that followed the police shooting of Jacob Blake. But in cross-examination, the prosecutor pressing Rittenhouse on his decision to go to Kenosha in the first place and why he showed up with an AR-15.
Why do you need the gun when you go out there?
I need the gun because if I had to protect myself because somebody attacked me.
And playing this video in court. Attempting to dismantle Rittenhouse's argument that he was in Kenosha that night to offer medical help.
You're not a certified EMT. You're not an EMT of any kind. You weren't on that night, correct?
Yes.
So you lied to him, correct?
I told him I was an EMT, but I wasn't.
At another point, the trial abruptly paused. The jurors walked out, the judge furious after the prosecutor seemed to allude to evidence the judge previously ruled was inadmissible.
You know very well that an attorney can't go into these types of areas when the judge has already ruled.
When court resumed, the prosecutors playing videos of Rittenhouse at the protest and attacking his claim he shot Rosenbaum in self-defense.
Joseph Rosenbaum never touched you in any way during that incident, correct?
He touched my gun.
He didn't touch your body in any way, did he?
No.
And dissecting this video where Rittenhouse shot Grosskreutz, who was also armed but didn't fire.
He's got a pistol not aimed at you. You've got an AR-15 aimed at him. Why is he more of a threat to you than you are to him?
Because he was moving at me with a gun in his hand.
All right, Alex Perez joins us.
So I stopped it right there, guys, because we all remember that case. Kyle Rittenhouse, a guy that decided to go defend businesses in Kenosha, Wisconsin, that did not ask for him for a gun that was purchased for him, and then decided to find a reason to go shoot somebody. Which he did. Shot 3 people. Shot 3 people, killed 1. Even though that trial was horseshit, that certain evidence was thrown out by the judge, and that at the end of it all, he was acquitted of all charges. Even had a little bit of a tour going on with certain Republicans and certain action committees. People forget millions, close to 1 million, I think almost 2 million, if memory serves right, was raised in his defense. And not one person had sat there and said, Well, that can't be done. He's a murderer. So why is it, outside the fairly obvious, that millions of dollars can be raised for Kyle Rittenhouse, a guy who put himself in a situation that did not ask for him, for a gun he wasn't supposed to have, and yet decided to shoot people, and he's called a hero, and defense funds were raised for him. Yet Mr. Anthony defended himself against an individual, and yet he's deemed a murderer, scum of the earth, and things of that nature. He's deemed all these things, and yet the same leeway wasn't given to him. Well, let's be honest. Kyle Rittenhouse is white. Carmelo Anthony is black. This is America. Need I say more? But we will follow the case of Mr. Anthony because, again, he is allowed due process. At the same time, if people want to raise funds to defend his case, they should be able to without remorse. Because, again, if you bark at Carmelo Anthony being defended as far as legal aid and funds being pumped for him, but Kyle Rittenhouse gets a pass by you, you are a hypocrite. Simple and plain. But we're going to go ahead and move on to our feel-good segment, guys, because usually how the Frack got here, we do cover a lot of things that are doom and gloom. Since I make you lose your faith in humanity, but hey, it's Wednesday. Tomorrow is hump day. Tomorrow is pre-Friday, which is Thursday. We will leave you guys out some good news, some good vibrations with two news stories. I want to talk about this first one because, again, it needs to be talked about. If you haven't seen the movie Sinners, you really should. I haven't yet. I'm actually waiting to see it this weekend, hopefully. But Ryan Coogler's standout movie has been doing numbers, and it should be well celebrated.
In a surprise upset, Sinners beat a Minecraft movie and topped the domestic chart at the Easter weekend box office. Ryan Coogler's film starring Michael B. Jordan debuted to an estimated $48 million, well ahead of an expected $40 million and even higher than Sunday's estimate of $45.6 million.
This world already left you for dead. I can save you from your fate.
You don't need no saving.
Yes, you do.
The growing strength of Sinners throughout the weekend was due to stellar word of mouth and a continuous spike in walk-up business. The horror adventure film achieved its victory after earning near-perfect reviews and glowing audience scores. As for a Minecraft movie, final numbers show the film taking in $40.5 million, which is still a standout number for a movie in its third weekend. It's now passed the $700 million mark globally. Both films come from Warner Brothers, making the studio the winner of the weekend box office. Warner Brothers commanded 64% of the market and became the first studio since 2009 to have two films gross $40 million or more in a single weekend. For more on this story and all the latest box office.
Well, I'm, happy for Minecraft, but we're here for Sinners. Again, Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan, the entire cast, from my understanding, has been nothing but great reviews. Still want to point that out every chance I get just because it needs to be. But again, still want to point that out that it's still great that how that actually wound up. And again, if you have not seen Sinners, highly recommend that you do. Also, last story that we got, guys, I keep on saying representation matters. And the Supreme Court in Kentucky has now just inducted their next Supreme Court justice. And I want to be able to give her flowers.
Stone for the Kentucky Supreme Court.
So help me God.
So help me God. With that, today, Justice Pamela Goodwine became the first Black woman to serve on the Supreme Court in Kentucky. And this is also the first time the court has had a female majority.
My commitment is to sustain the principles of justice for all with unwavering dedication, to uphold the rule of law with integrity, to protect the rights of all fairly, and to serve with the honor and honesty this role deserves.
Justice Goodwine was serving as the Deputy Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals when she was elected to the Supreme Court. Her swearing in comes days after Chief Justice Deborah Hembry Lambert became the Commonwealth's first female justice.
Again, you love to see it. Definitely congrats to the Honorable Justice Pamela R. Goodwin. Again, first black woman to the Kentucky Supreme Court, and the first time in the Kentucky Supreme Court, there's an all-female majority. Like I said, representation matters. Definitely want to celebrate that. But that being said, guys, that's going to do it for this podcast. Thank you all for liking, for watching, for letting people know it's live. I certainly appreciate that. Shameless plugs like we usually do before we get out of here. Shout out to APR TV. Always press record. Why? Because How the Frack We Got Here can be seen on there. Definitely check them out on the Roku channel as well as the Amazon Fire TV app. Also, APR TV can be seen wherever smart devices are. Wherever smart devices are. So definitely you can catch us wherever you're at. Also, BlurStation.com. Definitely check this out, guys. Another vehicle for us, by us, to where our content, our viewership, most importantly, our dollars be going to. $10.99 a month to stream Blur Station. Again, guys, hit the join now button. Select the Blur's Eye View of any membership. Select the Bird's Eye View of any membership. Select my name, Black Spartan. Again, $10.99 a month to stream Blur Station. Television shows, movies, animation, you name it, they got it. Definitely love to see it. After 36 months, you get the opportunity to own a piece of Blur Station, and it's never been easier to own a piece of a media network. But trust me, Tubi's great, but Tubi's owned by the same guy who owns Fox, and Tubi is well worth over $200 million now, and that's because of our viewership. It's time we actually switch it to where it actually belongs to us. Runforoffice.org. I talk about this all the time, guys. You want to know how Moms for Liberty did it, how the crazy people did it, even the crazy people called the New Tea Party did it? Well, they went through Run for Office, basically putting their address in, and you can see where you can run for office. If you do feel the call to serve, whether it's public, nationally or federally, you can definitely do so there. They actually walk through the process, how to run, how to get on the ballot, and hopefully win. So again, guys, we do need more actors in this area. We can no longer sit on the sidelines, because if we do nothing, that means they win, and that's exactly how F47 got his second run. Just saying. That being said, guys, How the Frack We Got Here on all socials, all together. We're found on YouTube. We're found on Facebook. We are found on Twitch, and we are actually found on TikTok. Like, share, subscribe. Let people know about this, guys. We cannot do this without you. I do love the fact there are so many views that we can definitely see on our page, on the YouTube page and Facebook page. But guys, the likes have got to go up. We are fighting the algorithm as you speak. And right now, without those likes, we're not able to reach people. We're not able to actually, spread the message that we love to spread. So if you help us, so if you love us, if you like what we do, if you share what we do, we appreciate it. But help us get them likes up, because that is the only way we can beat the algorithm and break past that glass ceiling and actually reach out a lot more people, like-minded people like yourselves, that want the news, but want it straight with no filter. And that's what we try to do here. Also, for myself, Black_Spartan615, guys, you can follow me there. Just don't be weird. Don't do any weird stuff. I don't really want to block people. I'm a very open and talkative guy. So, let's do that. Let's keep the conversation going. But the last thing I'll say about How the Frack We Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel, guys. We are simply giving you all the information, allowing you to make up your own mind. We do provide a lot of perspective that goes along with it. We do better society once we're informed. We're progressive. We try to move forward by righting the wrongs of the past, by making decisions now that we should have done back then, like electing our first black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to Kentucky Supreme Court, electing our first black woman to the Federal Board of Governors. Maybe one day, electing our first black woman to be called Madam President. All great things. We don't learn from history. We are doomed to repeat it. That's what we keep asking ourselves. Why does everything go up at our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians but still the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please take care of yourselves and each other. Please protect your peace. Don't doom scroll. Check on your strong friends. Do something that makes you happy. And if you have the ability to make somebody else happy for either a minute or a lifetime, do so. The world can use more of that. And also, smile. It's not that bad. Peace.